I'm 19 years old, sitting on my lifeguard perch on a hot summer day in the suburbs of Chicago, and I've got mirror sunglasses on, zinc oxide on my nose, and a whistle around my neck. My job is to keep everyone in the pool safe. I look up and I see a 9-year-old girl on the high dive looking down with great trepidation, which tells me this is probably her first time jumping. That alone makes me sit up on the edge of my lifeguard perch a little bit more. Finally, she jumps off, she goes underwater, and I start counting. 5 seconds, 6 seconds, which is about 2 seconds too long to be under. Finally, she gets to the top and she's flailing and swallowing water, and I know from my lifeguard training that if I threw her a buoy, she would be too panicked to grab it. So I dive in and get to her in seconds. I pull her to the side. She's scared and choking, but I know she's going to make it. That event happened over 30 years ago, but it still serves me for whatever challenges I may face today. The biggest lesson from being a lifeguard is to not panic and to stay calm. And when you do that, you are ready for these unexpected waves that might hit you in your own life. What do you do when one hits you? Do you keep your head down and ignore disruption? If you do, you'll probably drown. However, if you raise your hand and start to learn new things, you can amaze yourself and thrive. And unlike in a hurricane, when they send in a helicopter to evacuate those people who didn't evacuate, no one's coming to rescue you in your own life. That's why you have to be the lifeguard of your own life. There's 3 ways to do that. The first one is do not bury your head in the sand like an ostrich. If you do that, your career could look like Blockbuster. However, if you embrace disruption and change, you can be like Netflix and innovate and stay ahead. In 2004, my life was great. I was selling luxury advertising for Conde Nast W magazine, and people were using their homes as an ATM machine to take cash out and buying luxury products that they never bought before, which made all the luxury advertising budgets go up. And then around 2006, I started to notice advertisers shifting their budgets from print to digital. It was like watching the Titanic in slow motion. You could see the iceberg coming and you hoped you wouldn't hit it, and yet you probably knew you would. And then by 2008, the housing market crashed, and so did the luxury advertising market. I got a phone call from my publisher in New York, and I was living in LA, and she said, "I'm sorry, we're going to have to lay off all of the people in the outside offices, including you. You have to be out by the end of the day." It felt like a kick to my gut. I'd been there 15 years. But my lifeguard training kicked in, and I said, "Don't panic, stay calm." And I called my sister and a friend, and I said, "Hey, I need some help clearing out this office. I got to be out of here in 24 hours. And I said to my boss, "Would you like me to give you a status report of where the ads are running and what issue?" She goes, "Well, that would be great. Everyone else is so angry, they're just storming out." I said, "I'm not going to do that. I've known these people 15 years. I've watched them get married and have kids. I care too much about them." Little did I know that that one decision would impact me positively 2 years later. And as we packed up 15 years of photos and plants and memories, I turned one last time before I closed the door, and I thought, I feel sad, and I feel disappointed, and a little scared about this unknown future. And then I remembered, wait a minute, I've lost my job, not my identity. The second key to being the lifeguard of your own life is to don't just work smart. You know, the old way was, don't work hard, work smart. Working smart's not enough anymore. You have to combine your heart with your head. Your gut instinct needs to work with your intellect in order to make this work. Disruption can allow us to reinvent ourselves. Think back on the movies. You know, there were silent movies only, and then technology came along and there were talkies. Some of those actors made it from silent to talkies. What new skill are you going to learn to be part of this new disrupted world we're living in? I decided that I was going to learn how to sell digital advertising. So I reached out to some of my contacts and said, hey, does anybody know anybody at the Daily Beast website? I understand they're hiring. And they did, and I got a phone interview. So I'm on the phone with them, and I'm talking to them, and I said, I'm going to be in New York in a couple of weeks. Why don't I just stop by the office and we could have another interview? And they said, well, as long as we don't have to pay to fly you here from LA, sure. I didn't have another trip planned, but I knew on paper I wasn't qualified to get the job. I had to get in front of them to have a chance. So when I had no money coming in, I still spent money to get myself to New York to get there. And when I got there, I acted like I already had the job. I said, I mocked up what the Lexus brand would look like on the website, and here's what I would do the first 90 days if you hire me. Well, after a few more interviews, I did get the job, and it was really hard. I had to learn a whole new language, and for 6 months, I didn't get very many advertisers. Finally, Lexus came in, and I started to get some momentum. And then, 2 years to the day that I was laid off, I got a call from my old boss saying, we've had a lot of turnover and a lot of lost accounts. We have a new editor. We're looking for someone who can sell print and digital, and you now do that. Would you ever consider coming back? And I know that's because of how I left on a good note that I got that call. And I said to her, yes, I will. And then I said to myself, but I'm not coming back with one day of fear. Because that whole 15 years, I'd had the fear of, what if I don't make my goal? What if the magazine goes out of business? What if? And I said, I got laid off, and I'm fine. So I'm not going to have fear about that anymore. And by coming back with no fear, I was able to come up with new ideas to get people to advertise in a new way. I approached Guess Jeans, and I said, it's your 30th anniversary coming up with W Magazine's 40th anniversary. What if we did a joint celebration? Drew Barrymore's been on the cover of W Magazine. She's also been a guest model. We could have photos of them up on the wall along with other images and invite celebrities and get all kinds of publicity that we wouldn't get alone. They liked the idea and agreed to run a 30-page supplement. Every page was a different model from the year, inserted into W Magazine's 40th anniversary. It was a huge hit, and I got a lot of advertising from it. I ended up winning Salesperson of the Year, not just for W Magazine, but for the entire company. And as I was standing there holding that award, I thought to myself, wait a minute, I'm the same person whether I got laid off or won this award. And that's when I made it my personal mission to help as many people like you get off this self-esteem roller coaster of only feeling good about ourselves if our numbers are up and bad about ourselves if our numbers are down. The next key to being the lifeguard of your own life is to get out of your comfort zone. It doesn't exist anymore. What I want to invite you to get into is the learning zone. Fear literally evaporates as you learn something new. However, fear can start to take on all kinds of disguises. Like, I can't do this. This is too hard. This is overwhelming. So I realized after winning that award at Conde Nast that I'd been in my comfort zone too long, and it was time to go work for myself. So I was talking to people about ideas, and they said, well, you should start a podcast. And I said, I should go to the moon too. How do you do that? And I realized I had some fear around it. So I thought, I'm going to put some faces on this fear so I can identify what it is. And there's literally 3 faces of fear. The first one is the fear of rejection. What if I reach out to some people and say, would you like to be a guest on my podcast? And they say, well, do you have any episodes I could listen to? No, you'd be the first. And I realized the key to dealing with rejection is to never reject yourself. And let me tell you, when I did get someone to be on the podcast, I had butterflies in my stomach. But the goal is to not get rid of those butterflies, but to get them to fly in formation. The second fear for me was the fear of failure. Well, what if I get some people on the show, but then nobody downloads it, and I wasted time and money, and I'll be embarrassed? And I realized, you know what? Failure is just feedback. Don't be afraid of it. And when you really start to look at it, if you're a perfectionist and you're so afraid of starting something unless you can do it perfectly, you'll never do it. So I want to invite you to become a progressionist instead of a perfectionist. A progressionist is someone who says, episode 1 is going to be very different than episode 10 or 100, and I'm going to be making progress and celebrating every step of that progress. And the third and final fear I had to conquer was the fear of the unknown, and this almost stopped me from doing it. I don't know even what mic to buy. How do I edit this podcast? What do I do as a host? And luckily for me, I found someone that's their whole business, done for you podcasting. You do the interview and we'll produce it. So the cure for this fear of the unknown is don't go it alone. Now, if you look back at what you've learned, that who you are is bigger than anything that's happening to you, whether you've lost your job or winning an award, you're totally free to bring the best version of you to the world. And the 3 key steps to being the lifeguard of your own life are don't bury your head in the sand, trust your gut instinct, and get in the learning zone. Because now more than ever, the world needs the best version of you to show up. Thanks.